Welcome everybody to your Innovation, Grants, Technology, Commerce, and Trade Committee. Sooner or later, everyone's going to learn what IGTCT stands for, if I say it enough times. I forget myself. I'm joined by my colleagues, Council Members Buscaino and Krikorian. And let's start with Espinosa. Are there any general public comment cards?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so general public comment is closed. Unless there's an objection from my colleagues, I'd like to move items 3, 4, and 5 on consent.
Move the items.
Okay. But before we take that vote, are there any public comment cards on items 3, 4, and 5?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so public comment is satisfied. It's been moved and seconded, so there's no objections. 3, 4, and 5 will be taken on consent. Let's then move to the non-consent items. Start with item number 1, if you would please read that into the record.
Item number 1 is a communication from the mayor relative to the appointment of Mr. Don Liu as the Executive Director of the Los Angeles Department of Convention and Tourism Development. This was also referred to the Economic Development Committee.
Mr. Liu, would you please join us at the table? You are no stranger to any of us here, and while we're disappointed that you're considering leaving some big shoes behind at the port, we're happy to consider you for this lofty position, and we'd love to hear what you have to say. So.
Appreciate the opportunity to meet with my home committee, and I do know what IGTCT stands for.
So why don't you start? You've got an extensive wealth of knowledge and experience in the city. Share a little bit about your experiences and what you will rely on most to be the Executive Director of the Department of Convention and Tourism, or what you see as your vision for the department.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've had a long and varied road here at the City of Los Angeles, starting with the City Attorney's Office with City Attorney Jim Hahn, followed by 4 years with Mayor Hahn, then being voted out of office and taking a break for a few years, and returning to be Chief of Staff to Councilwoman Janice Hahn, to then to be Chief of Staff for Councilman Joe Buscaino, followed by a return to the Mayor's office with Mayor Garcetti, and then the last 2 years I was Chief of Staff at the Port of Los Angeles. My daughters like to say I'm more like a millennial than they are, switching jobs every 2 years. But one of the consistent things in my experience here at the city is working with all the great staff that we have throughout the city and in all of our departments and all of your elected offices as well. I like to think that something that I bring to all the jobs that I've had is an ability to look at complex problems, listen loudly to all sides, and to build consensus for, I should say, what my boss thinks is the best thing to do. I'm consistently loyal and hardworking, and again, look for ways to bring many disparate sides to agreement.
And in terms of being competitive as a city of Los Angeles with the convention centers, what's your North Star, or what are your plans?
The short-term goals are very simple. We need to, in order to attract the citywide events to the convention center and to the city of Los Angeles, we need to, two main things: have enough hotel rooms within walking distance, and the mayor has made it a goal to have 8,000 hotel rooms within walking distance of the convention center. And then the second goal is to have larger contiguous space in halls, meeting rooms, and ballrooms. And that's the completion of the partial completion of the approved plan to connect the two halls.
Mr. Buscaino, I know you have a lot of dirt on this man, so
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Doan. So I arrived here in January of 2012, and I turned to you to take me around the halls here at City Hall and show me the ropes. And really, I'm proud of our relationship and your guidance. I owe a debt of gratitude to you, and disappointed when the mayor took you away from me, but I knew you had to expand your wings as a deputy mayor, and it was the right choice at that time. And the fact that the mayor also then cut your commute a lot and got you to San Pedro as in your role as executive director or the chief of staff to the Port of Los Angeles. I think now, with your experience and knowledge, we have always at the Port of Los Angeles and the San Pedro Wilmington areas been trying to get more events and shows and conventions and bring in some resources down to the harbor area. You now know the importance of, and will never forget where you came from. And I believe this opportunity for you as executive director of the Convention and Tourism Department, will forge that perfect marriage between what's happening here in the downtown region, but also not forgetting about our LA waterfront. So I know, Mr. Chair, that Doan's going to be a tremendous asset not only for the department, but also for our waterfront as the waterfront continues to develop. In 2018, the National League of Cities will come to the city of Los Angeles with their annual city summit. Looking forward to partnering with you and your team in making this one of the best ever city summits that NLC has seen in decades. So looking forward to, again, putting our heads together and partnering with the LA's Convention and Tourism Bureau. Aside from, I know, 2024, the Olympics, who you know very well in planning for the Olympics and helping put that bid together. So this appointment from the mayor is just right. It's a perfect fit. However, and I shared this with the mayor, we're going to miss you. We're going to miss you down at the port. You are, between you and Gene Soroka, that 1-2 punch, that the fact that Gene is America's port director. We saw historical numbers this last year in TEUs that came through our port. But in your time at the port, you helped solidify the San Pedro Public Market lease agreement with Mr. Rakovich and his team. We have some big shoes to fill. I see a lot of folks here from the port that worked alongside. And you're absolutely right. You will bring people to the table and find compromise. And when I gave you marching orders as my chief of staff, you got to yes. And that's been our model in our council district, is just get to yes and just make it happen. And so with that, you have my support, and looking forward to continuing to work with you. So I don't know, this is like your 4th job in 4 months, right? So I don't know if you're bouncing around, or you're really, folks, they just want you because of your skill set, your knowledge, your abilities to lead. And the fact now, the mayor is really big on diversifying his general managers, and believe you're now the highest ranking Korean American that will serve in his cabinet, or at least as a general manager in the city of Los Angeles. And that's who we are as a city. So really also support this in a way that you reflect our city. So looking forward to, congratulations on this appointment. Look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Councilman. Look forward to working with you on the 2018 conference. Yeah. I imagine there might be a reception or two in San Pedro when the National League of Cities is here.
Mr. Kokori.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and congratulations on your appointment, Mr. Liu.
Thank you,
since I walked into this building 7 or so years ago, I've always been an admirer of your professionalism, your demeanor, your deep understanding of the operation of this building and of city government, your substantive knowledge on so many policy issues. And so I'm a big fan. The only blemish on your record that I'm aware of is that lip-syncing performance in the infamous Call Me Maybe video. You know, but maybe that's the sort of thing that you can turn to your advantage in this new position in supporting tourism and so on. I don't know.
It was under duress.
But I was very pleased to hear your comment in brief response to the chairman's question about the convention center. We seem to have kind of flailed around a bit in recent years in developing a clear vision for the future of the convention center. And that's for a lot of good reasons. There's been the change in governance. There's been, you know, how we've redone the entire structure of how oversight and governance is done at the convention centers because of the AG, you know, proposal that obviously didn't advance. For many reasons, we haven't gotten our arms around a clear vision for the future of the convention center and moved it forward. And there hasn't even really been agreement. I've asked the question many times over the course of several leaders of the convention center about what the biggest barriers are. For a while it was contiguous space. Then for a while it was, no, the contiguous space is fine, but we need more hotel rooms. And then it was other things. I think you've correctly said it's both of those two major issues. And we need solutions, and we need somebody who's going to drive that forward. And I think that you're the right person to do that. And I think that you'll find broad support in the council, certainly from us, I'm sure, in getting that vision realized, because we all understand very much what a driver of economic development and jobs creation the convention center can be, should be, and will be. And so I appreciate your response, and I'm very pleased that you're going to be the person in the position to start to overcome those obstacles and move the convention center forward into the 21st century. So congratulations. You certainly have my strong support.
Thank you very much, Councilman.
And if I may, sorry, Mr. Chairman, Facebook just reminded me that today is our friends' anniversary of 6 years. And they have put together a great montage of you and I, and no video though, Mr. Krikorian. No Call Me Maybe, but I really appreciate being a friend of Joan Liu.
Are you on Facebook? I wasn't sure.
I am on Facebook. Sorry, Mr. Chair.
No, it's all right. Well, you know, both my colleagues have already expressed their support, so as much as I might try to make some drama out of this vote, I think it's pretty clear. So with unanimous support, we recommend Mr. Don Liu for this position. So
Thank you very much. Look forward to working with you all.
thank you. Okay, moving on to item number 2.
Item number 2 are reports from the Board of Airport Commissioners relative to the 2017 annual work plan to support the landslide access modernization program at the Los Angeles International Airport.
Great, thank you. Mark Adams, Bill Kretz, Sarah Baga, welcome.
Good afternoon. Mark Adams, Los Angeles World Airports. I'll lead off. LAWA has negotiated an MOU with a number of other city departments. I believe it's 14 other departments and bureaus regarding the way we're going to interrelate and interact in moving forward with our LAMP program, which everybody's familiar with. One of the aspects of that MOU is to prepare an annual work plan that will outline the specific positions that will be approved for the next year. This is actually a partial work program because it looks at the current fiscal year here. But from LAWA's perspective, we approved a work program that would approve us reimbursing for 7.5 full FTEs in a variety of departments, and I believe the CAO has their own recommendations building on that. But we have these are positions that are needed to help move the LAMP program forward in terms of whether it be permitting and whether it be reviewing the plans and such like that. So we're very excited to embark on this, and you have our full support for the positions that are recommended in this annual work program.
Any additional comments to?
Sarai Bago with the CAO's office. We went through the process of reaching out to each of the departments to determine if the positions were necessary as new authorities or if the workload could be absorbed within existing resources. So the report recommends positions that we concluded after that review needed new authorities.
So these will be new hires.
Yes.
You want to, any additional opening comments or? No?
Yes, Bill Kreitzer, the CAO's office. Yes, Mr. Chairman, we did, as Sarai mentioned, we did review all the position descriptions. These are really important primarily because of the very aggressive construction schedule that LAWA has, and having these city staff dedicated to the support of the LAMP program early on so that we can move as quickly and as seamlessly as possible, we felt was very important to staying within the timetable. So for those reasons, we recommend approval.
Do we anticipate these workers, these employees being available on an overtime basis as well, or is it strictly the positions?
Well, as we described, some of the positions are full-time positions, so they would be exclusively on the LAMP program. Some of these are half-time or even quarter-time equivalents, and so they would, I think, under the CEO's recommendations, get, the work would be absorbed into the current workload, and we would be reimbursing for all that.
And then, obviously, the LAMP program is temporary, but so what happens at the end of the LAMP program, although it's a longer-term issue?
Well, we would do this annual work program every year, and we actually expect the numbers will go up because right now, as we're still in the planning phase, we expect that the numbers of positions in future annual work programs would actually be higher. But that would, what happens as the program proceeds would be subject to that negotiation every year.
And the other thing is it's sort of off. Have we taken steps to shift these type of requests to align with the city's fiscal year? Is there any, besides making it match up easier, any reason to do that?
Well, this is specifically through June 30th, and we're going to do a new annual plan for the next fiscal year, and we're working on that.
So that will align with the fiscal year.
Then we'll start to align with the fiscal year, right? The thing was with the MOU was completed in January, and we needed to want to get these authorizations on board as quickly as possible.
Colleagues, any additional questions? Good. No? Okay, great. Well, we're excited about the LAMP program. We're excited about getting the employees out there to do it. And so the recommendation is to approve the board recommendations and recommendations 1, 2, and 3 of the CAO report. And without objection, that'll be the order. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now we can move on. We've done 3, 4, and 5, I believe we did on consent.
Yep.
So we'll move to item number 6. Espinoza, if you would read that one into the record.
Item number 6, a report from the Board of Harbor Commissioners relative to the agreement with the Wilmington Youth Sailing Center for maritime educational programs.
Great. Mr. Galvin at the table. If you provide us an overview of the port's aesthetic mitigation program, how it relates to this item, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Chairman. The port started this process back in 2001, coming out of China shipping mitigation funds, which were created beginning in 2001 due to a lawsuit that the port was involved with regarding the China shipping container terminal. Aesthetic mitigation funds were established at that time. In 2006, they were programmed for this specific use, which is the Wilmington Youth Sailing Center. So there were a variety of community-based organizations that applied for mitigation funds. Under this, Wilmington Youth Sailing Center was one of those. So there was $3.1 million that was approved for funding for the Wilmington Youth Sailing Center. Unfortunately, it took a long time, 10 years, for us to actually bring this forward. And the result is really derived from a variety of land use issues around the port and trying to find the right location for this and trying to find the right location for the kids, the right location for the activation of the waterfront in the way that we wanted to activate it, and in a place that was safe, away from cargo operations, but that provided the kids with the opportunity to sail where there's actually wind. And so there were a lot of different locations that were suggested over time, studied, and there were different issues that resulted. But finally, in last year, we came to a resolution that the location would be in the Wilmington waterfront development area. The port is moving forward with about a $90 million investment into Wilmington through the Wilmington waterfront development, which includes a promenade that will span the water's edge next to Manning's Landing in Wilmington and a public access way that will tie the Wilmington waterfront park into Avalon and down to the waterfront. And we thought that that was an ideal location for the Wilmington Youth Sailing Center because it does two of the main things that the port is trying to do with the waterfront at this point is both activates the waterfront through activity and it creates infrastructure to allow for future activation and future development by others in the area, mainly from private investors. 2016, we brought this forward. We came to an agreement with Wilmington Youth Sailing Center. Also provides the Sailing Center a 9-year operating agreement, which really puts a foundation down for them to build a board around, to build fundraising around, so that they can ultimately be successful in raising funds necessary to keep this program going in the long term.
Great. Do you want to initial comments? Or?
Sarai Baga from the CAO's office. Just wanted to mention that we concur with the department and recommend approval.
Great. Thank you. And obviously the timing is really unfortunate in terms of a lot of those kids are now adults who were, could have benefited. But how did you choose this particular project? Who actually makes that decision to choose one project over another?
It was part of the China shipping mitigation process, and so there was a community organization that was created out of that settlement agreement, and the community organization would then decide on various projects. So there was an entire process built around that. There were applications received from both San Pedro and Wilmington organizations, and that were vetted completely along with the organizations that were proposing, and they went through a typical type of request for a proposal process, and were graded based on the attributes that they brought to the port and how they would help the port in the overall mission, especially in this situation of activating the waterfront.
So it was this community group that came out of it that ultimately made the decision?
Yes.
Okay. And then how much of the $3.1 million in the program has actually been allocated? Is this the first tranche?
No, there has been some money that has been spent to date on design. So of the $3.1 million, we've spent $400,000 on design to date. So that leaves about $2.2 million that will go into the actual building, and then another $500,000 that will go towards operations to get the Wilmington Youth Sailing Center up and running in the first 5 years.
Right, so that'll exhaust the fund at the end of it.
That will exhaust the operational fund, and then the $2.6 million will go or the $2.2 will go towards construction, and that will exhaust it at that point.
Great. And are there performance metrics, in terms of the number of at-risk youth served or anything like that?
There will be over time. So as the program builds, the intent is that they can serve over 100 youth with their program in a variety of ways. It's a half classroom, half outdoor activity type of environment, and so the intent is that they will rise over 100. But there are reporting requirements within the operating agreement that they have to adhere to continue to receive the operational funds.
Well, sounds great. It's going to be exciting to see it up and running. I'm sure, Joe, you're excited.
Yes, if I can, Mr. Chairman, thank you so much for moving forward on this item. It's great to see this long-awaited project come to fruition. We've been talking about this for many years, and to see an incredible and credible program, the Wilmington Youth Sailing, to come to the Wilmington waterfront. You're right, Michael. We need to do everything we can to not only make the investments, the infrastructure improvement, but also programming is going to be critical to the Wilmington waterfront. I know we conducted a pilot program last year, and last summer, 25 to 30 kids who were participating. We're hoping to see these numbers double this coming summer. Are we working with the school district to attract kids to the program?
We're working with Wilmington Youth Sailing Center to outreach to all of the organizations that we have relationships with. So especially the Boys and Girls Club, which they are actively involved with now, and they actually use classroom space at Boys and Girls Club in Wilmington. So we're actively working that relationship to drive more and more youth down to the water to participate in this summer's program.
Fantastic. It's nothing like seeing an 8-year-old or 9-year-old craft or pilot their own boat, and it's really impactful. I know my son took advantage of the San Pedro Youth Sailing Program, and it's really a confidence booster, and be able to expose them to the water, to natural sciences, bring them to their own waterfront, something that we'll continue to support moving forward. So I know Doan has departed from the port. Mike, I'm happy to see you in place and really banking on your knowledge as well to continue to move these types of projects. And from the Wilmington, the San Pedro waterfront, we are blessed to have you. I know this is something that's right up your alley that you're so passionate about. To see these investments take shape, I'm really proud of what you've done for our port. And when we talk about filling big shoes in Doan's departure, you've been there and you know it, you get it. And we just need to continue to work with the executive team there to ensure that they embrace you, and because they need to turn to you for your knowledge and your ability to make things happen along our LA waterfront. So really appreciate what you've done for us.
We appreciate your support always, and the support of the committee and the council, and we will continue to plug away. I've learned a lot by working with Doan over the last 2 years, and we'll continue.
Things are happening. We're moving. I see it on the San Pedro side, the infrastructure of the realignment of Sampson Way out of my window. I just get fired up every time I see those shovels and those trucks moving, because the investments are happening, and we owe a debt of gratitude to your leadership.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing no additional questions, the recommendation will be to approve the CAO and POLA recommendations. And seeing no objection, that will be the order. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And now we'll move to item number 7.
Item number 7 is a report from the City Administrative Officer relative to the Innovation and Performance Commission's Innovation Fund funding for the Department of Cultural Affairs Virtual Reality Accessibility Project for the Hollyhock House.
Yes.
Welcome. Thank you guys for being here.
Well, hello, good afternoon. I'm actually going to be up here for the this item and the next item, so I'm just going to kind of...
Say it again.
I'm going to be up here for this item and the following Innovation Fund items, so I just want to kind of introduce them both and then introduce them. Great. Well,
Yeah.
I'm Bianca Swan, Project Coordinator for the Innovation and Performance Commission. The Innovation and Performance Commission has recommended funding for 2 Innovation Fund items, an amendment to the original funding request for the Fire Department's Sober Unit Pilot and the Department of Cultural Affairs Virtual Reality Accessibility Project. For the cultural affair items, which we have right up here, the Innovation and Performance Commission has recommended funding in the amount of $133,000 for the Department of Cultural Affairs Virtual Reality Accessibility Project. The Department of Cultural Affairs, in partnership with the Department on Disability, want to develop a virtual reality accessible tour for the Hollyhock House. Through this pilot, previously inaccessible areas for visitors with disabilities will be made available. The aim of this pilot is to leverage technology to innovate on issues of accessibility for the city's cultural assets. I'll let the team go into further detail, and they have a presentation as well.
Thank you. Stephen Simon here, General Manager, Department on Disability. Thank you for having us today. Bianca laid it out there. I just want to give you a moment of history to add to that. So for the whole 6 years of renovation that's been going on for Hollyhock, we've been having this conversation about how do we expand accessibility. Yes, ramps are an option for a limited piece of it. There are a few other minor things we could do, but we certainly knew at both departments that we had to go high-tech with this. We've been interviewing potential plans for doing this for about 2 years now, and nothing quite fit right until this one. So we're very excited that this will expand accessibility not only across various communities with disabilities, but for the general public as well. So that said, I'm going to turn over to the DCA folks, and I'm going to get up and get out of the way so one of my staff members can come up and they can do a brief presentation for you on this pretty exciting project.
Thank you. Thank you for all the great work you do.
Thank you. My name is Will Capertini Montoya. I'm Director of Marketing and Development at DCA, and I've been with the Department of Cultural Affairs for going on 17 years now in that capacity. And just want to thank you for hosting us today and for giving us the chance to present this presentation to you about this architectural treasure that's in the city. We're honored and humbled to be considered for this Innovation Fund Grant Award, and we so appreciate being able to finally provide access to this site to people who are interested and engaged and want to learn more about it and the architect who created it. Frank Lloyd Wright's Hollyhock House was originally built for oil heiress Eileen Barnsdall. It's a LA historic monument. It's a National Historic Monument and is being considered by UNESCO for a World Heritage List nominee. It's arguably one of the city's and one of the department's greatest internationally recognized architectural treasures. And DCA's goal is to assure that as many people as possible and a large growing population of people who are disabled are able to experience both the grandeur of the house and the significance of it, built by one of LA's and America's most important 20th century architects. If we could flip the slide. The current challenge we face is that access to Hollyhock House is limited for everyone, including those who may have disabilities. Since its reopening in 2015, it gave rise to a visitor experience that isn't quite optimal because currently 2,300 square feet of the house is accessible while another 2,500 square feet of the house remains off limits to any visitors. If we can go to the next slide, please. Our solution is to try and make Hollyhock House as accessible virtually to all on-site visitors and to any off-site visitors who might be interested in this treasure. It remains one of the only Frank Lloyd Wright residences that is open to the public, bringing in over 30,000 visitors per year and resulting in a tour-driven revenue of about $107,000 a year. These figures are expected to double when the UNESCO World Heritage List nomination becomes reality, and virtual reality accessibility will only increase our visitor numbers as we are able to reach a wider constituency via a link from our own website to the virtual reality experience that people across the globe will be able to access so that they can visit Hollyhock House remotely and hopefully be encouraged to visit Los Angeles, spend their tourism dollars here, increase our local arts economy. It will also allow any disabled individuals who are interested in the site the opportunity to experience the house with high-resolution images that will allow them to immerse themselves in the details of the house, appreciate the craftsmanship that went into its design and building, and that, I think, would only please the memory of its architect, Frank Lloyd Wright, and it would certainly meet one of the goals of the departments to continue to provide access to arts and cultural experiences to as many people as possible. With that, I want to turn the floor over
to Claudia. Hi, I'm Claudia Natera. I'm from the Department on Disability. We are working in partnership with the Department on Cultural Affairs for our department's commitment to making the city of LA accessible, particularly this cultural gem for LA. One of the things that we want to make sure is that access is there. The other main point that we want to always bring up is to make sure that we're meeting our legal obligations under the ADA, particularly since in the past few years we have been hit by lawsuits based on access into the excess of $1 billion, and that's billion with a B. So we want to make sure that this is up and ready to go and it is accessible to people with disabilities in the County of LA and for tourists that are coming in or for anybody who would like to take a look at it.
Hello, I'm the Senior Project Coordinator at the Department of Cultural Affairs. I'm Wendy Su. I'm here to talk to you about the solution that we've come up with. With 360 VR technology, we're essentially going to redesign the current visitor experience. With 360 photography, we'll document, preserve, and make available the intricate details of the house, and this includes the really fine details, each of the built structures, like window frames, design furniture by Frank Lloyd Wright himself, down to the textural patterns of the walls and artworks. All of these details are key to the aesthetic standards and the experience of the house. The 360 photo images will be shared via 2 entry points. One is the on-site experience of the house. which will be experienced through a large tablet that visitors can borrow. This experience will be integrated into the guided tour with live interpretations from a docent. We know that some visitors will come with their own devices mounted onto wheelchairs. So we've come up with this sort of platform agnostic approach so that the VR content could be viewed on all devices. We also decided not to use goggles, simply because goggles and wearable VR devices can be somewhat uncomfortable. And this is a special consideration for individuals who are in the disabled community. Additionally, the 360 experience will be experienced online, and we're hoping that this online experience will actually drive the visitors to the actual physical site. We will continue to work with DoD closely just to make sure that all the technologies will be up to standards of ADA as well as the Web 508 accessibility code, which is becoming a standard for all digital experiences online. Finally, just to kind of bring it up to speed, we have been working in the format of a working group since 2014. The vendor selection process began last year, and the criteria for the selection have been based on DoD and DCA requirements. And one vendor has been selected and finalized, and now we're sort of going through the funding, hopefully with the approval to move forward. And our goal is to be able to launch the project by the end of summer, September. And this concludes our presentations, and we're happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Is there any difference in the experience that the remote users are going to have versus the on-site users? In terms of what they have access to?
Of course. So on-site, the experience will be integrated into a guided tour. And so our docents who normally give the tour will be trained to sort of figure out a script of walking through the space and getting at each of the sort of important points, say the music room. And once the wheelchair arrives in the music room, they will then given the opportunity to sort of get deeper into each of the details by looking at their screen and pointing in the environment of the virtual reality. So the on-site experiences is essentially augmented by the 360 technology, whereas the off-site experiences is just looking through a browser and pointing and getting at the details without the sort of live engagement with somebody who actually has a lot of knowledge about the house.
In addition to that, it's also you'll be walking with necessarily a group. So if you're there with your family and one of your family members is a person with disabilities, you'll be able to go through that group tour together.
And are there ongoing, we have the grant that's going to get you going, but are there ongoing costs that, in terms of maintenance, et cetera, that are going to be absorbed by the department, or how is that going to work?
Yes, we have a sense of the annual cost, and that includes the cost of web hosting and sort of web app maintenance. And also there's a hardware cost too. Every 3 years we'll have to provide the latest the hardware technology to make sure that it's up to date. So yeah, so we are quite aware of the sort of digital maintenance costs, and the management of our department is willing to support that.
Right. So that'll be an ongoing budget request. It won't be obviously it won't be an innovation fund request.
And it's our understanding, actually, that the revenue that's generated from the tours of the house will actually be able to pay for the maintenance of those website agreements and for the actual hardware that will need to be upgraded every 3 years.
And the mechanism for doing that's in place?
It's currently, in my understanding, forgive my limited understanding where it is in the process, we're looking for a fee increase to happen with the tours so that we can be able to pay for those items and a number of other items and bring the costs of the tours up to market value of other institutions in the region.
That's great. Alex, any additional questions on this?
Very innovative.
Yeah, and
it's why y'all exist.
Yeah, this is a great use of the Innovation Fund. And, curious, has the Department on Disability used this in the past? Are we breaking new ground here?
We are breaking new ground, and we were really looking at this as a pilot to see how it can be applied to other city facilities.
Yeah, I mean, it's once we get this squared away, I mean, this could be a program, replicable program
Exactly.
for many other areas that we want to do. So it's exciting. Without objection, we're going to approve the CAO recommendations on this item. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Swan can stay up, and
Yeah.
we'll bring up the LAFD for the next item. And Mr. Espinosa, would you please? And I assume there were no additional public comment cards on that one,
No, Mr. Chair.
nor on this item.
No.
Okay, great. Please read number 8.
Item number 8 is also a report from the City Administrative Officer relative to the Innovation Fund and Innovation and Performance Commission's request for funding for an amendment to the Los Angeles Fire Department's Sober Unit Project.
Good afternoon again. The Sober Unit, the Los Angeles Fire Department has presented an amendment to request additional funds for the Sober Unit pilot. The Commission, the Innovation Performance Commission, previously recommended $169,521 for the Sober Unit pilot that would staff a nurse practitioner with the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority community outreach worker. After careful analysis of the pilot, Fire has determined that the Sober Unit must have a firefighter paramedic in addition to a nurse practitioner and LAWSA outreach worker. Fire has requested an additional $162,000 to staff a firefighter paramedic for the pilot. After thorough explanation to the Commission detailing the need for this amendment, the Commission recommended the additional funding of $162,000 to fund the pilot. Dr. Eckstein is here to provide further details explaining why this change was needed.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, council members. What we've learned with our initial one-year pilot of our nurse practitioner response unit is that in order to perform our mission with the new Sober Unit, we need to make sure that our employees are safe. This is a highly volatile patient population. The advanced provider, which is a nurse practitioner or a physician assistant, their mission will be to perform medical clearance for these patients and determine if they could be safely transported to the new sobering center located downtown LA on 6th and Maple. The need for a firefighter paramedic is to safely operate the ambulance, provide scene safety, operate the radios, communicate with dispatch, and all the typical functions that a paramedic currently performs with our nurse practitioner response unit. These needs were not apparent when we first presented this proposal, but it became apparent as we learned and then carefully analyzed our results with our very successful launch of our nurse practitioner response unit. So the team would consist of a firefighter paramedic who have expressed interest in mobile integrated healthcare, an EMS advanced provider, which again is a nurse practitioner or physician assistant, and the county is providing a LA area homeless service, Los Angeles Homeless Service Authority case manager at no cost to the city.
I mean, it's a great program, the Sober Unit. Concerning that we're, in effect, doubling the cost. Do we expect to generate enough savings to continue funding the program through the budget with this doubling of costs? I mean, how much of the projected savings get eaten up by the additional firefighter?
Well, certainly, Mr. Chairman, we're going to run a number of metrics on the pilot and looking at cost effectiveness of this Sober Unit as well as our nurse practitioner response units. At the end of the day, as you know, with the coexistent problems of chronic inebriates amongst our largely homeless population in certain areas of the city, particularly in the Skid Row area of downtown Los Angeles, these individuals are tying up a tremendous number of emergency resources and accounting for a disproportionate number of hours of wall time right now for paramedic rescues. So we're very optimistic that the goal is not just to safely evaluate them and transport them to a sobering center in Leuven Emergency Department, but in working with our partners at the Sobering Center, which is run by Exodus from the Los Angeles County Health Services, the goal is to get these individuals into detox and transitional housing to stop the recidivism. So I think at the end of the day, the cost analysis will show this is very successful, not just in terms of human lives, but in terms of being fiscally responsible.
So you think it's going to save money, but we're still not quite sure yet, and is what I'm hearing, but that even with the additional firefighter cost, do you think it's still, given the wall time expenses, is going to result in the savings, obviously?
Yes, sir. I firmly believe this will save lives and save money in the long run.
Great. And the transport vehicle is an ambulance. Does it have to be? Like, why not use a, decked out old Subaru or something?
It's actually good. It's actually not a silly question at all.
Or any car. I'm just,
It's when we actually devised the program, we were considering using a van. It was felt after discussing with my nurse practitioner response unit team and public health staff that a reserve ambulance would offer the greatest versatility in terms of the mission for these types of patients.
Although the decision to use the ambulance, as I understand it, but correct me if I'm wrong, is what's driving the need for the extra firefighter, right? Because you can't have a non-trained driver personnel. Is that the driver for the additional person, or is it something else?
No, sir. It's a very good question. It's not really the vehicle, the apparatus they're operating. It really comes down to the operational concerns and scene safety. As you know, this is typically a very volatile patient population. The EMS advanced provider needs to perform medical clearance of the patient, and to do that alone with no one assisting with scene safety, communications, documentation, and other medical evaluation would be extremely problematic. So the initial plan was, as you mentioned, was not to use an ambulance, but after careful consideration offered the most versatility for the mission of the sober unit.
You say without any help, but initially it was with two people. You have the nurse practitioner and one additional firefighter. Now we're going to move it to having two additional firefighters.
No, sir. The city employees would be a firefighter paramedic who's going to be on a detail on the resource for the duration of the 12-month pilot, the EMS advanced provider, which is the NP or PA, and then the county's providing the LASA worker in kind at no cost to the city. And they're just to assist with community outreach who have specific expertise and experience with this patient population.
So they couldn't be trained to help be that the second pair of hands, which you're saying is what's needed. The nurse practitioner, it's too hard to do it alone, and I get that. So that's why I want to have the additional person. You have the additional person and the LASA person, but they're not trained to be that additional set of hands. Is that?
That's correct, sir. So we initially thought the LASA worker would assume some of those roles currently performed by our paramedic on the NPRU. But we learned after research and looking at our metrics with our pilot, the LASA worker is a layperson. They have no medical training whatsoever. They have no training in field operations. And the safety issue became one issue, then just logistically being able to care for these individuals was the other. It was felt that to rely on the LASA worker to perform any of those critical functions would be extremely risky for everybody's sake.
Colleagues, additional questions? It's a great program. Obviously, we never like having to come back and double down on the funding, but all of us, I think I'm speaking for, we really think this is a great program with great potential. So I'm going to move that we approve the CAO recommendations and the Commission's recommendations. And without objection, that will be the order. And I believe that is the last item. Anything else on our docket?
Thank you.
No, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much.
Thank you both very much. Appreciate it. No additional items, no additional comments, public comments. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.